Start. Remove this one. Okay, good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you on behalf of Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment at Masa University. I'm Dr. Dia, a lecturer at the Engineering Department. And I would like to welcome Dr. Harris, who is going to speak on Industrial Revolution IR4. So let me introduce our today's speaker. Dr. Harris Sabri obtained his degree of mechanical engineering from University Technology Malaysia in 2003 and obtained his Doctor of Philosophy from the same university in 2018. He started his career in oil and gas as a maintenance rotating engineer for National Oil Company, downstream utilities. Planned career to joining upstream development division, where he became the lead engineer for various turbo machinery and major rotating equipment packages. Currently, Dr. Harris, in his 16 years in oil and gas industry, he is serving the Center of Operational Excellence, where he was entrusted to lead the digital solution related to the rotating equipment for upstream business. In addition to all that, he is also the committee member for Mechanical Engineering Technical Division and Deputy Chairman of Project Management Technical Division, Session 2021. Hi, Doctor.
Yes, hi, Dr. Dia.
Yeah. So the floor is yours, Doctor.
Okay, all right. So let me start with sharing my screen. I hope you can hear my voice clearly. Can you see the pack? Can you see the pack now?
No.
Okay. The status here shared. The screen has been shared. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay, all right. Can you see the whole screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so let me start my presentation. So more or less today, I think I'll cover this topic. The topic that's given to me is all about challenges and opportunities in Industrial Revolution 4.0. Okay, now it's coming out. Okay, just see it. Actually, today I'm representing. I'm coming here using my hat as under Project Management Technical Division, IEM. IEM stands for Institution of Engineers Malaysia. So before that, actually, on top of introduction that's been given by the chairman, okay, just a little bit about myself. I would like to go through a little bit. So actually, I graduated from just local university, the University Technology Malaysia. I obtained my engineering degree from UTM way back in 2003. And then a few years later, I pursue with my professional engineer accreditation through IEM as well as BEM. So that was my first step. Eventually, I thought that, okay, why don't I challenge myself to go further? So I took another certification, professional certification under PMI. There is being called SPMP. PMP stands for Project Management Professional, so on and so forth. And then subsequently, a few years later, I obtained my postgraduate, also from the same university, which is University Technology Malaysia. So currently, I'm quite active in both technical division. There are two currently that I'm working with. One is Mechanical Engineering Technical Division, and the other one is Project Management Technical Division. Recently, last year, I also obtained my accreditation as Professional Technologist under MBOT. Okay. So in terms of experience, I think this year is my 16th year in oil and gas. But before I joined oil and gas, actually, I started my career in automotive industries, because when I took my degree, actually what I thought is, okay, I want to work in automotive industry because my degree was mechanical engineering and majoring in automotive, right? But eventually it does not happen. Things might change along the line. It does not happen as what you planned. And suddenly I got an offer from on national oil and gas company. So when I joined them, I was exposed to various kind of projects, namely from greenfield, brownfield, as well as getting the opportunity to handle major turbo machinery projects. So currently what I'm doing right now is more on the digitalization. Okay, currently that's what I'm doing right now. That is my current portfolio. So today I'm going to talk more on what are the challenges and how can we capitalize from the Industrial Revolution 4.0. All right, before that, anyone would like to add me? Actually, I'm quite active in LinkedIn, so you can always add me. So I always share some of useful information sometimes with regards to IR4.0 in via LinkedIn. So if you want to add me, feel free to add me at those address. Those are my address for my LinkedIn. Okay, let's start with this. Let's understand what does it mean by industry revolution. Actually, if you look back at the history, the first industry revolution 4.0, okay, I think it's a little bit lagging, right?
No, it's okay,
All
doctor.
right,
It's
okay.
not lagging.
I already gone to the next slide actually. We started the Industrial Revolution 4.0 way back in 1784. That was our 1.0. So how we started is actually by the introduction of the steam engine. Okay. So actually, if you look at this graph, it takes another almost 100 years for us to move from Industry 1.0 to 2.0. Okay. So what is the main content of 2.0? Actually, inside 2.0, the major difference is mass production. We are talking about assembly line, okay, electrical energy, those kind of stuff. Actually, those are the catalysts for the Industry Revolution 2.0. And again, the trend continues. It takes almost more or less another 100 years to move from one to another. So you can see that the jump of 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0 is more or less in approximately 100 years. So what is meant by 3.0 is all about automation, it's about computer, that's why electronic. This is where we start to use computers. You still remember that time during 60s or 70s, the computer is very big. It's the same computer that what we have as of today. If you talk about handphones, and handphones are also very big, they're not handy as what we have as today. There's no smartphone at all. So whatever we achieve today is actually more on Industrial Revolution 4.0. So what we'll talk about today is more the IoT, on the networking, this kind of stuff. But eventually, uh, if you look at the trend, it might take, the time taken to move from 3.0 to 4.0 has been cut short almost by half, all right? Maybe because the technology has advanced more and more, okay? So you can see the trend will increase, start decreasing. So I believe that for us, for the world to jump to the next industrial revolution, maybe 5.0, it will take less than maybe another 20 or even 30 years, or maybe less than that, in order for us to jump to the next, to make the next leap of faith. What accelerates us actually in order to jump to the next stage? So there's no prize for the best guess because it's very well known because of COVID-19. I think we have to accelerate what we want to achieve in terms of Industrial Revolution 4.0 or the digitalization. In fact, today, I think I will be standing at Masa University to deliver this talk because I've been talking to your university since past 2 years. Actually, I'm one of your IAP for mechanical engineering program, namely diploma as well as degree program. I was one of the IAP, Industrial Advisory Panel. But unfortunately, because of COVID, I couldn't go to the university to have the talks or not. So eventually, we have to go through this. I have to deliver the talk using webinar mode. Okay, let's go back a little bit to understand back what does it mean by Industrial Revolution 4.0, which was started by this. This is the train, the original train that we used to see previously, and it's all powered by steam, by coal. So when they found out, okay, they can utilize coal as and to burn the coal and in order to generate power using steam engine, this actually catalyst the revolution 1.0. So, okay, hold on. I've already moved to the next page actually. I'm showing a picture of one guy here. I'm not sure whether you know him or not. Actually, this guy is the inventor of the first proper steam engine, and the guy's name is James Watt. Okay, right. This is the name. This is the guy who invented. Um, so once he has invented a proper steam engine, he uh, revolutionized the IR 1.0. So people have managed to, utilize the steam engine in order to move on to the next stage. Okay, next one. Okay, let's look what happened in Industrial Revolution 2.0. I think everybody knows Ford, right? Henry Ford. Henry Ford is actually the owners or the originator of Ford cars, which is based in the United States. So despite having to understand that IR 2.0, when you talk about assembly line, was introduced way earlier, around 1860 or something, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Ford actually went a little bit late compared to other industry. Why? Because during that time, before he found this method, he was still manufacturing the car using manual method, okay, which means most of the work are being done by humans. Okay. So how he managed to get this idea of introducing assembly line? Actually, you can see the enhancement. One, he started to introduce the assembly line by embracing Industrial Revolution 2.0 in December 1913. He managed to increase the number of car produced in a year to 260,000 by using less number of workers compared to the previous method. So by all means, actually, he managed to reduce the overall cost in order to produce one car. So again, to be able to increase the overall profit for his company. So how he managed to get this idea? Actually, one day he went to visit a butchery. Okay, this butchery is owned by his friend. So he was caught by surprise. He asked his friend, okay, actually, how do you manage to do this? So he managed to get the idea. It seems like the other industry, which is covered by his friend here, is already embarking the assembly line. So he managed to get this idea and he copy this idea and implement at his own factory. And eventually, finally, he managed to enhance his manufacturing by learning from other industries. Therefore, the message that I would like to send here is actually, even though in my case, I've been working 16 years in oil and gas, that does not mean that I cannot learn from other industries. Therefore, I need to expand my network. Okay, I also have to learn from other industries like aeronautical, automotive, manufacturing, and whatnot, because there's always best practices that you can learn from other industries and implement it into your current job. So always expand your network and don't enclose it just within your particular industries. So that is the best lesson learned that I can share based on Henry Ford case. All right, the next one is I want to talk about Industrial Revolution 3.0. Okay, the picture already pop up here. Actually, I'm showing the picture of the very old, ancient computer. Okay, it's actually the original Apple computer. It's still not appear in this slide. Okay, for some reason. So this is how it looks like actually. It's very big, it's very heavy, okay, very tough as well. I think if the computer fell down, I think it will not damage like nowadays. If we use our own laptop currently, if it fall down, I think it can easily break. So there are good and bads. Okay, it's quite robust, but again, it's very heavy and it's not that mobile as what we used to have here. But this is what technology stage that we have during that point of time, Industrial Revolution 3.0. Okay, next one is to talk about automation. So we start to have robots in order to assist the assembly line, things like that. Okay. Uh, Next slide is what I'm showing here is all the buzzword when it comes to Industry Revolution 4.0. What are the buzzword that always fall in mind? We have here strategic computing, production, augmented, customization, autonomous, technical, things like that. IoT. Oh, sorry, I think I have to wait first because it's still lagging again.
Okay,
The
doctor.
slide. All right. Okay. I was talking about this slide. These are all the buzzwords that always people talk about when it comes to the IR 4.0. So what is the actual? Okay, in terms of what people would like to say about IR 4.0, actually, in different part of the world, they might be calling it something else. But if you look inside the details in terms of the component, I would say that it's more or less the same. Let's look at United States. Do they call it as IR 4.0? Actually, they call it Industrial Internet Smart Manufacturing Industry 4.0. So if you look at other country, like especially in Europe, some of it is, for example, Belgium, they call it as factories of the future. Okay, Denmark, they call it MADE, MADE for some reason. Okay, Netherlands, very simple, smart industry. UK Industry 4.0, so on and so forth. China is also, again, they are using a totally different name, Made in China 2035, and Japan, Robot Revolution Initiative Society 5.0. So the gist that I want to say here is regardless, whatever they want to call it, regardless different name, actually we are talking about the same thing. It's all about the elements inside here, it's all more or less the same. It's all about Industry Revolution 4.0. Okay, let's look at the potential impact first. What is the expected trend? Okay, these are again based on the studies that has been made by various consultants. Okay, based on the statistic, it is expected that 10% of the people around the world will start to wear clothes which is connected to internet. Okay, and they will be able to see that in terms of pharmacies. Currently, if you go to pharmacy, you will be entertained by a person, right? By human. The trend will be that it's expected that you moving forward, the human in pharmacy will be replaced by robot. Same goes to a car where instead of having a normal manufacturing assembly line in order to produce a car, it might be that we are able to produce first 3D printed car in about 4 years time. Okay? But again, I'm not going to read all this just to give you some flavor on what is the potential impact of IR to us. But let me share you one story that happened to my friend. Okay. Actually, one day he posted this in his social media. Okay, I think the picture is a little bit lagging. So he showed to me this. He is a jogger. He likes jogging, similar like me. But suddenly his apps inside his handphone give a warning. Then he show when he showed the picture, it indicates that actually the shoes has been utilized for more than certain kilometers. Okay, on the you can see on the right. Right. So actually, it's a good thing because this is another good example of IoT. So what I'm trying to say here, okay, sometimes when you wear your shoes, you never realize that actually your shoes has a shelf on shelf lifetime, especially because shoes are made of rubber. It's actually designed for certain lifetime. Once you exceed certain mileage, similar like your car tire or something, actually it's about time for you to change it. You can no longer use it in a safe manner. Physically, if you just look at the shoes, it might still look good. Okay, it might still shiny because you maintain it properly or whatnot. But there should be a design lifetime for the material by itself. So that's going forward. I guess that will be one of the added advantage of having IoT, and this also relates to the point number one, which whatever we wear is actually might be connected to internet, and we'll start to see things like this, then the trends is going to be increased day by day. In that, okay, uh, I'm not selling shoes, okay, but this might be another trick for the Google or Amazon to start advertising new shoes to you. Okay, the next picture is indicating a machine. All right, sorry for the delay again. Can you imagine this? Usually, what if you want to do your housework, it's going to be done by people, but maybe in the future all those house core work might be replaced by robots. So nowadays, I think there's a lot of robot manufacturer which already come up with this solution. Okay, you might be seeing this in news, in internet or whatnot. Okay, this is how it looks like, sample of it. So you can also train the robot to do your house chores, right? So maybe if you are too busy or something, you can also utilize IR 4.0 to do some of your house related work. Okay, let's imagine this. Maybe 5 years or 10 years down the road, they say I need to go for job interview. We might be falling into this kind of situation. In fact, if you talk about nowadays, it might be happening already, but you'll never see the actual robot yet in front of your eyes. But this picture is actually trying to indicate or try to portray what will be the challenges. Can you imagine that human has to fight with the robots itself in order to apply for certain jobs? Okay, so can you imagine this will happen? So either today or 5 years down the road. But by hook or by crook, we have to adapt ourselves towards these challenges. So this is why in this talk today, I'll try to highlight what are the challenges. One of it will be some of the work might be replaced by the automation, by the robotics or whatnot. So as a human, we have to adjust ourselves, we have to adapt, right? We have to relearn new skills in order to make sure to make ourselves still relevant to the current job. Okay, the next slide is also I took the statistic from World Economic Forum. What does it state here? Actually, based on the study that has been made by WEF, it is expected that 65% of children who enter the current primary school will ultimately end up working in a completely new job that does not exist yet. Okay. So for me, I'm already worked more than 15 to 16 years. So I'm not really worried about myself. When I look at this statistics, it's actually I'm worried about my kids because they are still in primary and secondary school. So actually, to be honest, I'm not sure when they graduate from the university, what are they going to work as? Is it as an engineer or is it a job that still not exist yet? So this actually, I'm talking about the future of my own kids, right? So think about it, right? So even though it might not impact you, it might also impact you, your family, or even your friends, things like that. So let's look again on the impact of IR4.0 in terms of number of companies that we have. Okay, let's wait until the slides comes in. Okay, these numbers, this name of companies might be you might be very familiar with. We talk about Uber, Airbnb, Facebook, Instagram, Netflix, Alibaba, so on and so forth. Actually, this company just exists about 20 years ago because in 80s, they did not even exist, all right? And when you look at their modus operandi, the way how they work, it's more or less all evolving digitalization. Right? For example, Airbnb, even though it's one of the largest accommodation provider, actually they don't even own any real estate. Okay, the same goes to Facebook. It's very popular. It's widely used. In fact, today I think it's this event is also covered under Facebook Live. All right, it's being broadcast. But again, Facebook does not create their own content. The content is all provided by the users. Okay, same goes to other companies that has been selected here. Okay, let's look at the numbers of the company. If you are aware, every year they will come out with a list of Fortune 500 companies. What does it mean by this list? This list actually to give us a feel of what are the top 500 companies in the world. So based on the list, it will keep on changing, and some other company which exists last time, okay, if you look again at the Fortune 500, it no longer exists inside the list. For example, the one that has been put X there is it Kodak? Kodak, okay. And then we also have few oil and gas companies like FMC, Murphy Oil, Marathon Oil, even has. Once upon a time, the name of these companies actually they are one of the top companies inside the Fortune 500. But if you look at the list right now, it's no longer there. So the list has been always been replaced by the new companies, by even the startups or whatnot, because actually they are the emerging technologies that has to be, I mean, to be applied in the current world. The next slide, okay, let's look into our major case study. This one I'm going to focus on Kodak. I hope the new generation have seen this. If you're not, I'm not sure whether you can still buy this at any local shops or not, or else you might be able to see this in museum. The next picture is actually showing the Kodak film. Okay, so during my time when I was still a kid, my parents used to have manual DSLR, and definitely they need to use this Kodak. So it's very widely used. So what happened to this company actually? It's one of the top companies. It's actually Kodak is based in US. So the next slide is indicating the downfall of Kodak. During the peak time, actually, because Kodak is also listed in the stock exchange in US, they managed to hit almost $100 per shares. So at that price, I think it is quite luxury for them. So they think the company can survive for maybe 100 years or so. But again, because they didn't manage to adapt themselves, so you can start to see the downfall of Kodak after the stock price increase. Okay, so you can start to see the declining phase from 92 for $87 and start to decline, and eventually, before it was declared bankrupt, actually the last price that was declared is around 36 cents only. So you can see how much it has been reduced significantly. Why is it? What went wrong? Is it they managed to reinvent themselves? Is it they didn't manage to adapt to the challenges? Okay, those are the questions that you can throw back to yourself, and it might happen to us if we are not being able to adapt to the current needs of the IR 4.0. Okay, then this comic, okay, which is given by Dave, was drawn by Dave Granlund, I think again explains in satire way when Kodak announced the vacancy, all the pictures, the camera that's being used are actually their competitors. You can see there's Fuji, Sony, Nikon, Canon, Samsung. Okay, during that time, okay, I have to admit that even some of these companies are quite struggle at this point in time. For example, Nikon, they also, I think, struggle to survive. But at least for the past 10 years, after Kodak went for their downfall, okay, Nikon managed to survive because of certain things, certain areas. But again, even though we survive on this round, okay, we still need to adapt ourselves. Still need to look, always benchmark ourselves with what other industry needs to avoid from another downfall. So that is the biggest lesson learned that we can get from the Kodak history. Okay, while waiting for the next slides to appear, let me take a little bit. Okay, next one is I just want to take a quote from Jack Ma, okay, way back in 2017 when he was still the big boss for Alibaba. He mentioned this AI stands for artificial intelligence. AI will cause people more pain than happiness. A key social conflict will be the rise of artificial intelligence and longer life expectancy, which will lead to an aging workforce fighting for fewer jobs. That's what Jack Ma predict during that time. Okay. So again, I would like to throw back the question to the crowd. Should we be afraid of this or should we adapt? So for me, the answer will be very simple. Don't need to be afraid because we know the answers, right? We know what to do. So instead of staying put, staying quiet without doing nothing, we have to reinvent ourselves and to see what are the skills, what are the needs by the industry, and um, we have to mold ourselves to meet those industry's requirements. Okay, the next slides will also mention about the studies that has been made. Okay, according to the various studies, it has been proven that what are the job scope that might be put on the risk due to automation. So It's quite consistent here, despite study has been done by different consultant. On the left is by Fay and Osborne, and on the right is by Kazana Research Institute. But more or less, you can see that the result is more or less the same. We are talking about the one that will be exposed in terms of their job will be the semi-skilled worker, ranging from clerks, telemarketers, sales, factory workers, and receptionists. Why? Because this kind of work might be exposed towards, might be replaced by automation. But the one other medium risk will be technicians, secretaries, mechanics, repairmen, and cleaners. And when we talk about the low risk, is high skilled workers like doctors, even teachers. Okay, teachers are also actually quite difficult to be replaced by automation. Engineers, even police, as well as cook. But don't get me wrong, even though if let's say you are interested to pursue on the high skill, even though it's low risk, does not mean that that work cannot be replaced by automation, because technology always evolve. I believe there's already people already invent AI system which can also cook, okay, which can also teach, we can also be replace the engineer. So again, we have to reinvent ourselves as a cook or as an engineer. How can we adapt ourselves to complement each other instead of fighting with the robots or something? All right, okay, next one is another study that has been made with 2 years ago. They asked all the employers, what are you looking for inside an employee in order to hire them? So based on these studies, okay, which will appear in few seconds, these are the top three. I just verbally mentioned first. In terms of soft skill, what are they looking for in terms of the person? They are looking for people who are very good in terms of problem solving, okay, who has a good team working, because as we work if we work inside a company, of course you have to work as a team. You can never you should not be working alone. All right. Therefore, these are the top two skills which require to be shown by each person, and that is the skills that is most sought after by any employer. Okay, next one, of course, we talk about verbal communication. They want the staff to be able to have a high communication skills. So those are the top three. So let's look at the hard skill. So hard skill, they want you to have a good project management. So regardless you are in HR or engineering or construction or whatnot, you might be given a project for you to finish off, right? So we talk about hard skill. Definitely, they are looking for people who are able to manage the specific project. Next one is talk about capability to analyze statistically as well as to data mining. I'm not talking about the machine learning or even as a data analyst. Talking about basic kind of analysis that can be done. So those are the skills that is required by any person that is being sought after a company. So again, I think I'll skip this more or less just to support back the argument that has been shown by the previous slide. I'll go fast on this slide. Okay, the next slide is actually just to again to reiterate what are the expected redundant roles, what are the stable roles, and what are the new emerging roles. And this is based on the study that has been made by Hayes Salary Guide, and it appear in each our local newspaper. Okay, the H. Okay, all right. This is like, so just to highlight back the earlier concern based on the WF study. Okay, the people in their primary school, whatever, when they graduate later, maybe they don't know what they want to become with. So actually, this will be the answers. What I will reckon my kids to look for is inside the new roles. They can also go for the stable roles, okay, if they don't know what to do, all right. But on top of that, to add on to existing roles, I will also encourage them to look into the new roles that just exist about a few years ago, or maybe to be added more later in future. So for the graduates who are still in universities, okay, or even for the people who are already in working and looking for career change, I believe the best advice that I can give to you right now is try to embark yourself, to adapt yourself to these new roles. So what are the skills which is required to become a data analyst, to become machine learning specialist, big data specialist, so on and so forth. Okay, the next slide. Okay, how many minutes? So it's 4:35. Okay, I think I have another 15 minutes. Next slide, I will go a little bit deep dive in terms of WEF. There is another study that has been done by World Economic Forum that is specific in Malaysia. It involves is explained what are the impact on COVID-19 on the company strategy. And the result that is being shown here is actually specific to Malaysia. So the WEF study is actually quite comprehensive. It covers the whole world, as well as they also have a specific study on Malaysia. So what does it says? The impact of COVID-19 on companies, the top three will be they are able to accelerate the digitalization of a process. I think it's happening right now. That's why I have to work for even myself, even Masa University. You guys have to work from home. Okay, so we have to accelerate the digitalization process. So number two is to provide more opportunities to work remotely. Yes, not really to work from home. Sometimes I also have to work from mobile places, things like that. And the third one is to accelerate the digitalization of upskilling and reskilling. Even though I have been working as engineers for the past 50 years, that does not stop me from learning new skills. So even myself, I have to relearn new skills like how to do data analytics, you know, that. So it's a lifelong learning. So that is something that you have to embrace. So what kind of thing that you have to adopt based on the studies? So top three will be, first of all, Internet of Things and connected device. When you talk about IoT, it's all about sensors. So you have to look into what are the sensors available. Is it wired? Is it remote sensors? Things like that. Depends on what you want, depends on your budget, depends on criticality or whatnot. And number two is about big data analytics, right? And number three is which is equally important because the increase of usage in digital expose us to cybersecurity. So if you are an expert or you want to be in demand, actually the other thing that I would like to propose to you is to be an expert inside encryption as well as expert in cybersecurity, because this is one of the so-called skills that being sought after nowadays. Okay, the rest are all being readable as what is shown in the slide. Okay, the next slide also talk about emerging and redundant job roles. Okay, while waiting for the slides to appear. But again, I'm not going to dwell too much on this. More or less, it's just a repetitive of the previous studies. But what I'm trying to say here is actually the studies are more or less complement with each other. It's quite consistent. We talk about the redundant jobs are more or less the same. It keep on appearing. Uh, you see me? Okay, all right, good. But the other thing that I would like to highlight here is the emerging skills on top of the technical skill. The one that you have to go with is number one is emotional intelligence. Okay, this is something that you have to control. Okay, we have EQ as well as IQ, so on and so forth. So actually, emotional intelligence is something that is being sought after. Next one is creativity, originality, and initiative. And number three, just highlight top three, analytical thinking and innovative. So those are the top three, which has been identified under the study made by WEF. Okay, the next thing that I would like to highlight here is about IR4.0. What does it consist inside IR4.0? These are the extract that I took from our government initiative. Okay, they already come out with Industry Forward 4.0. The document is available. It can be easily downloadable from our MITI government website. Okay. So actually inside the document, it has listed about 11, 11 numbers of technologies and advancements. So you can started ranging from artificial intelligence, big data analytics, augmented reality, Reinvention, so on and so forth. So actually, if you want to deep dive on each, you can easily select what elements you are interested with. So you can become part of it, all right? You can be an expert on it. So by doing that, actually, I think you already start to embark your journey as part of the IR 4.0. So what I'm trying to say here is take the opportunity, right? You can identify what are the niche market that require your expertise. For example, if you are interested more on materials, I think there is an element here. It's stated at advanced material. So you can do a study on this, and it can match to the IR 4.0 requirement. Okay, the next slide is explaining about IR 4.0 design principle. It talks about information transparency and visualization, decentralization, okay, and allows autonomous decision. We can also perform real-time monitoring and capability instead of having it lagging. Okay, previously we would without IR 4.0, I think we have to rely. I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort in order for us to have access towards data. But under IR 4.0, actually we are able to monitor most of the things real time, due to the visibility. Next one is technical assistance and service orientation as well as modularity. So those are 6 main design principle which is covered under Industry 4.0 pillars. Okay. Next one, the next slide is talk about the benefits. So how we want to measure benefits when we apply Industry 4.0. Actually, more or less, we have 4 elements that we can use in order to gauge the benefits of FO. Number one is productivity. You can measure whether you are having increased the productivity or lower productivity. Number two is to talk about flexibility. Number three, we can talk about quality. Okay, you want it's either to maintain the quality or to increase the overall quality. And last but not least will be speed in terms of pace. By applying Industry 4.0, does it increase the overall speed in order to complete a project, for example, or to complete the manufacturing process, things like that. So you can use this 4 quarters, productivity, flexibility, quality, and speed in order to measure your impact of Industry 4.0 to your organization. So this is one of the example. Okay, the next slide is just to show, to indicate recently in China, I think this happens last year, with the introduction of 5G. Okay, I think Malaysia is still lagging behind, we still use 4G. But once 5G band is introduced, I think the higher band, you can use more data, things like that. In China, they are already able to remotely control the heavy machineries from remote location, meaning that, okay, these are the pictures. Just I can't remember where is it located, all right, but you just have to sit inside a control room or even at your house with all the IoTs, with all the sensors available. You are able to manage to control the heavy machineries at from remote area. So you can see here, there are 2 heavy machineries here. And one is the lorry, another one is the what I call it, the scavenger. All right. So what is the contribution towards this? I think number one will be safety. If there's something happen, accident happen, actually you will not expose your people towards any incident, because if an accident happen, actually the person is actually not located at the site. The person is currently remotely located at somewhere else. So in terms of insurance coverage or whatnot, I think it can significantly reduce, because the risk that is being exposed to the human or the workers are much lesser compared to the conventional way. If you're doing things, all right, you can see people walking around at the side, okay, and there's a tendency, or there's also risk of accident happen, things fall down, things like that. So actually, these are the benefits that we can reap by having industry, by applying Industry Revolution 4.0. Right, almost towards the end. Okay, just give me for a few more minutes. What does it take for the young graduates to face IR 4.0? Like what we mentioned earlier inside the study by WAF, it mentioned about emotional intelligence. A study that has been made by Dr. Travis Bradbury, okay, according to the study, 90% of top performers in general, they are actually having high EQ. And EQ is also responsible for 58% of your job performance. And based on his study, not my study, also mentioned that people with high EQ makes more, generates more income annually compared to lower EQ. So this is what the study says. So let's look into what does it mean by the emotional intelligence. Those are the elements that has been shown here. We talk about self-perception, self-expression, interpersonal decision making, and stress management. If you want to deep dive more, okay, those are the elements inside each element, so on and so forth. All right. So for me, emotional intelligence is something that you can build, something you can groom. So along the line, let's say you just graduated from university or whatnot, you can always go for management skills or management training or whatnot in order to build up or groom yourself to increase your emotional intelligence. So don't be too concerned about this. All right, this is something that actually you can develop or you can train yourself. The last slide I want to add is on this is based on my own experience. On top of EQ, we also have IQ and SQ, right? IQ stands for sorry, EQ emotional, IQ is intelligence quotient, S is spiritual quotient, all right? The last that I want to add is actually DQ. DQ stands for digital quality. There's a lot of studies that have been made recently, okay? When you talk about digital quality, there's also sub-element inside that. Okay, you can do some literature. So by having these four elements, these four quotient, I think we are more or less prepared. We can prepare ourselves in order to face the challenges of IR 4.0. All right, I think I finished off my talk within 45 minutes. All right, let's open the floor for Q&A. Would that be okay?
Okay, Doctor, on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank you for a most interesting presentation. And I'm sure that after that stimulating presentation, you would like to ask some question or comment on what the speaker has made. So please send your question to the chat box. Actually, Doctor, we have received two questions so far. One from Muhammad Sufyan. He asked, do you think fintech will affect the banking industry in Malaysia?
Can you repeat that question? Sorry.
Do you think fintech will affect the banking industry in Malaysia?
Fintech. Oh, fintech banking. Okay, all right. Yeah, by right, I will talk about. I can just give my comments based on my general understanding. All right. Uh, the digitalization will definitely impact any industries, including banking. You can see that some other banks will start to close the numbers of um, shops or even office that they have. Why? Because they feel that they no longer need physical presence because some of the work that usually can need to be done at office or physical presence can now be replaced by digital. Okay, so for the current bank that we are used to deal with, it's either they have to adapt within the current situation, or if they still want to maintain the current operating way or they used to be like 10 or 20 years ago, it might increase their overall OPEX, they might increase their overall cost. So it's either they have to adapt themselves or left behind. So in other words, yes, every industries will be affected by the so-called digitalization. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. We already also received another question from Zafri. He asked, how do you justify sales can be replaced by artificial intelligence?
All right. Okay. A good example that actually I face myself right now is this. Have you heard recently that okay, the privacy regulation that's changed in WhatsApp? So moving forward, because Facebook owns WhatsApp, right? So once they start to share in terms of the information, you'll start to see, okay, if you open your own Facebook or social media, sometimes accidentally you'll automatically you will see some of the advertisement suddenly pop up in your page, and without realizing it, some of the advertisements is actually relates to your conversation earlier inside your messaging. So that happens to me few times already. Okay, let's say for example I have a chat with my friend. I was talking about I want to paint my house in next month, and to my surprise, in the next immediately, like 1 to 2 hours after that, the advertisement of about new paint or even services related to that painting, how to paint a house, suddenly appear in my social media. So that is a good example of how AI can replace sales, because it's more like targeting the sales to the interest of people. Right now, if you want to do sales, actually, if somebody walks into the shop, for example, actually you cannot read their mind. You don't know what they want to buy. And usually what I do is, if I enter a shop and the salesperson approach me, I said, can I help you? You ask me, right? So I will tell them, I'm just browsing. It's okay, because I don't want to be disturbed. I would like to spend more time myself to look for the things. I know what I want to buy actually, but I don't want to be disturbed by the salesperson. Okay, but by having this kind of AI, actually is a targeted sales. They are able to read what you have intentionally. Let's say you have wrote it somewhere else, right? Your intention. So that can be easily translated into targeted audience. Okay. So another thing that I can quote is based on the, they can also analyze what are the things based on the sales. Okay. What are the highest things that always been bought after sought after based on certain places. For example, we have many states in Malaysia. We have Selangor, we have Kuala Lumpur, we have Perak, we have Pahang. Based on AI, maybe they can always advise, okay, if you want to sell something, you want to sell sport shoes, for example, the highest sales it might be not in this particular states, because let's say in Pahang, the highest sales might be in Selangor because of the weather is different, for example. And I'm just giving a simple quote, right? Because of the weather is different. People are unable to use sport shoe in Pahang because it's always rain there, right? So they will always be indoor. So by having AI who can prescribe this to your company, maybe it helps you as a sales to put your product at a targeted market. You know that if I want to sell my shoes in Pahang, the sales will be always lower because of the weather. But if I want to have a higher sales, I will always sell it in different states, because based on statistics, this it helps because of the weather. The weather is very nice. Okay, it's always hot there. People always like to run during evening, so the sales is always you can always get a higher sales if you sell it in Perak, Selangor, and Kuala Lumpur. Okay, I hope that answers Zafri's question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. I think we don't have more question. So for all audience, please fill in the Google Form survey, the share in the chat box. And thank you all for attending this webinar. Thank you very much, Doctor. And hope
Okay,
we
all
meet
right.
you again.
Okay, thank you.